Good afternoon, everybody here. Good afternoon, everybody in the internet. We're being webcast, so I want to make sure we recognize them. My name is Joe Horse-Capture. My tribal affiliation is Aaninin, commonly known as Grovon. My community is a small place in north central Montana called Fort Belknap Indian Reservation. Belknap is named after a man by the name of William F. Belknap, who was the Secretary of War under Grant, who was later impeached for corruption, so it's natural you name a reservation after him. So today, my talk, non-natives as natives, I'm an Indian too. It's sort of a play on the Broadway song, as well as a real famous video by the 1491s. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest that you YouTube it. So much has been said today about the dangers of cultural appropriation among Native people. And as we sort of think about this, we kind of have to, what I'm going to do is we're going to sort of look at three different examples, all coming at it from sort of different angles. So we're going to start here, we're going to kind of go way out, and then eventually toward the end, we're going to come back. So you have to be patient with me and work with me here, okay? So as we think about cultural appropriation, as I mentioned earlier in a previous presentation, you sort of have to look back at the history. And of course, one of the earliest examples of cultural appropriation is the Boston Tea Party, where the Sons of Liberty, dressed as Mohawks with painted faces, and they boarded ships and threw tea in the water in protest of the Tea Act of 1773. And this protest and their British response eventually led to the revolution. So it's the idea of if you want to do something, but you don't want it to really be you, dress up as Indians. Because Indians historically have always been the other, right? They sort of have this nobleness to them. A certain savage, I guess it depends on who you ask. Some of my friends certainly are, but it's sort of like the sense of the other. So by dressing up as Indian, you can sort of take on this different character and be something else. Sometimes that something else is actually part of you. So as we sort of think about it within a different context, not just here in this country, but as we look at it for what was happening over in Europe, we must introduce this man by the name of Karl May. He was a German writer, a convict, a man who liked to portray himself in different lights. And it was when he was in jail where he started writing, mostly about the American West. Having never been in the American West at all or met Native Americans, he wrote a very important series for Germans about Indians in the 1890s. And his work, although again, he had never met Native Americans before, I think he only went into the United States maybe once, and it was just for a brief time and went back. And our good friends, the Germans, across the way, absolutely loved his books. I mean, even today, some of his books that he created in Germany are the most popular novels ever sold in Germany, and they're still selling like hotcakes. And his most famous book, or excuse me, his character, is an Apache by the name of Windio, who meets a man by the name of Old Shattered Hand, who of course is, a German friend who adopts him as a blood brother. And through their wacky adventures, May's trilogy really sort of set the precedence of how Germans looked at Native American culture. And even in Germany in 1963, he created a movie, Apache Gold. It's an adventure as vast and as wild land that spawned it. And it's an Apache Gold, and remember back in those days, remember they used to have in Technicolor, this one here is an Apache color, just to ensure we get that straightened out. And the Germans were very much into Native Americans, and I think the reason why is, of course, long ago they came from tribal people as well, and also during this time, the way that, particularly in Eastern Germany, the way their government was very impressive, and they certainly need something to escape. So once again, it sort of ties back to the Boston Tea Party. When you're going to escape, heck, why not be Native Americans? And Karl May's movement really started this Native American hobbyism in Europe. what I call Euro Hobbs. And they get together every year, and they create these Indian clubs. And if you're thinking about, well, you know, it's just a few people, well, in fact, every year there's groups of 40,000 of them that come together and they make these Indian camps. And it's interesting because you see in the upper left, it sort of looks like an historic photo, but actually the photo in the lower right is the same group. So what they're doing is they're creating outfits, they get together, they have mock wars, they you know, smoke their so-called peace pipe together, and it very much becomes a hobby. I mean, this is sort of the thing that they do. And again, many of these people have never had any contact with Native Americans at all, have never been to the United States. So what they do is part of their Indian club, which to me always is a strange term for a number of reasons, is they get together and they have camps in the beautiful German countryside with a rainbow and painted teepees and the horse, and you see the whole family's down there hanging out doing Euro Hobb native things. They ride bareback, and I'm not sure how much these guys have been on the plains, but I'm not sure how this guy's rear end's going to be feeling after going on a ride if he's mostly spending time in his office. So they get together, they have camps, they bring the whole family and they dress up. Clearly she is not very happy about being there. And they make their outfits. And sometimes some of these Euro Hobbs will spend just a few weeks, and some will spend all summer living this lifestyle. They also have ceremonies. And these ceremonies, of course, is everything they've either seen in a movie or they read in anthropological texts. The outfits they create is also based, they try to base it on historical objects. They get them from books. But also one of the things that not many people know about is some of the great collections of Native American objects are actually in Europe. So the Ethnographic Museum in Germany has a great collection. Zurich has a good collection. St. Petersburg has a good collection. So you have plenty of inspiration over there. So they dress up and they conduct ceremonies, and hopefully I don't need to explain this too much, but you know, by performing, you know, in traditional lifestyle among Native people, you know, to have ceremonies you need to have certain rights, and these rights are earned or they're passed down through the family. It's not really something that they're supposed to be doing. They also learn the language, and oddly enough, some of them have dedicated their life so much to this that they become Native American experts. It's from their point of view that Native people like myself and Kathleen and all my other friends here, we don't know Native, we're not the real Native Americans. They're the real Native Americans in Germany. Not only do they do this, but miraculously they also travel through time. These guys, these Native people have some super duper strong medicine going on here. Now, as you travel back to the United States, I must introduce you to a man by the name of Colonel Alfred B. Welch. We can see seated here in the front. He was born in 1874 and he passed away in 1945. He is obviously non-Native. He was a well-decorated war veteran. He served in the Philippine insurrection as well as World War I. Now, what makes him interesting is sort of his story. So during World War I, he was in the battle and he had many Native people with him. And as sort of oral tradition goes, during this battle, one of his people who he was watching over got wounded. So sort of like they do in the movies, and this actually happened, is he, well, according to oral tradition, is he went out to this person who was wounded on the battlefield and grabbed him and brought him back and saved him. Well, coming to find out, that person was a Native American. And coming to find out, that person was the son of Chief John Grass, who was the headman among the Ampapa Lakota, which we know today are the reservations at Standing Rock. And so because of that deed, it's, you know, among Native people, performing these kind of things and saving your comrades in battle is, you know, one of the highest honors. So because of that, John Grass adopted him and gave him great honors, and actually gave him a Native name by the name of Charging Bear. And Welch, who was very, very much into this, absolutely adored it. He like completely consumed it. And he consumed it to the point where he became one of them. He was adopted in. And the outfits that he wore, he didn't commission. The people at Standing Rock at the time made these outfits for him. And to make even the story a bit more odd, is much like many men of this age during that time period, he belonged to one of those fraternal organizations. He was a Shriner. And he was from a small town west of Bismarck, North Dakota, and I know everybody's been to Bismarck, North Dakota, a little small town called Mandan. So his group was the Mandan Indian Shriners, and they also learned the language, and they also would perform ceremonies, not only on their own at their little Mandan house up on the hill, but also to go down and visit their relatives Indian way, because he was adopted in, and hang out with the tribes down there. When he would walk in, all the native people would stop and they would shake his hand and would sing honor songs for them. So as you look at the German side, they're doing it sort of without permission, where Welch has been adopted in and they're making outfits for him to wear within this context. Although I must admit, Welch and his group maybe have taken it a little bit too far. Welch and his other comrades of his Mandan Indian Shriners, and you could see them there in the middle, and either on each side you can see them dressed up as well. They would, the whole group absolutely embraced it. They even made a special group within the Mandan Indian Shriners called the White Horse Society, and that was sort of the elite of the non-native people dressing up as native people. And they were hugely popular at the time. They would go parading. You can see up here they have a parade in Seattle because, they have these Shriners always had these festivals all over the place. And there you can see them at our nation's capital. I'm sure there's probably some kind of smarty-aleck comment that I could do, but I'm not going to. And they were pretty much accepted during that time period. For the group that adopted Welch and his people in, they were okay with them being part of it. I'm not sure exactly how much they knew that they were promoting it in this sense, but Welch was very, very sort of on board with it. And in fact, one time, and I don't have a slide, I'm watching my time, so I'm okay. So there's a story where in Seattle, they were having a Shriner convention. And if you know the railroad goes straight across North Dakota, all the way through Glacier, all the way to Seattle. And Welch was a postmaster general in Mandan, and he sort of knew everybody. And there was this big Shriner convention in Seattle, and he got the list of all the Shriners coming from the east who were going to be on that train that was coming through. And so he had them stop at just outside of Mandan, and his group, all dressed in Native American gear, boarded the train. And these people were from back east, never been around Native people before, and they actually thought they were being robbed by Native Americans. And there are accounts in the newspapers where the women were like getting their jewelry and putting it in their shoe and down their shirt and hiding everything. So what happened is the Shriners found some other Shriners talking very broken English. You a Shriner? The guy's like, yeah, I am. So they take him off, and they all go to their little Shriner house and drink beer and have a good time. So that was sort of the entertainment that they did. So he was also a very popular. Welch was very popular. He also did commercials. So this is advertising the Lincoln 12-cylinder automobile. Everybody loved Alfred B. Welch. So where it starts to get even more strange is when these hobbyists become experts. On your left is Norm Fader, who's photographed in the 60s. To your right is Richard Kahn. Now, these two are some of the early people who were involved with the Denver Art Museum and also built some of the collection. And Denver Art Museum is known to have one of the really absolutely best, well, except of course for NMAI, one of the absolute best Native American collections around. And they have done a lot of really important work regarding Native American art. But these two gentlemen, both curators and very important within their role, the Denver Art Museum sort of crossed that line, I guess one would say. They became hobbyists, they began making things, and then they become experts. And when you become expert within that context, you're virtually leaving out the entire native voice. And that, to me, is when it becomes a little dangerous. Now, if you remember earlier when we talked about the European hobbyists, you'll notice everything that they were wearing. And this is a picture inside of their teepee. And you notice some very fine beadwork. You can see down in the lower right is a painted rawhide container. You can see there's a pipe bag, there's a knife sheath, all very, teepee bag, all very, very well done, as well as a drawing in the back. And they're actually making that stuff. And when they're making it, some of it is coming to the market here in the United States. This is a picture from a store/trading post in Montana. And here, some of these pipe bags are native made and Euro Hobb made. And if you're not an expert in the field, it's very difficult to tell the difference. So as Adrian had mentioned about finances, this is finances at a different level. They're selling oftentimes objects that have been aged and appearance of historic to the untrained eye. This is a photograph of a German fellow who has become an expert at creating Native American objects, I guess the word would be, and there he is selling his gear to one of the trading posts in Montana. Now, interestingly enough, there's two places that I know of, three places in Montana that sell this stuff mixed in with Native American inspired material, actually Native inspired material, which one would connect this, as well as Native material, which is created by Native Americans. Interestingly enough, there in Montana, there's a law, a very obscure law, and this was actually made to counter the Japanese imports, is that if you're selling Native American looking art in a gallery, and some of it is non-native made and some of it is native made, the two need to be displayed separately and they need to be labeled, which is, I think, really aggressive, particularly for Montana. But that is not being honored at all in the state. So what happens is these Euro Hobbs have become absolute experts at creating this material. This looks like a Lakota pipe bag. In fact, this is Euro Hobb work. A Dakota style mittens, great quilled flow work, Euro Hobb, and a Lakota Strike-A-Light bag. It's worn on the side. Again, all Euro Hobb. So there's this strange dynamic between dressing like Native American, as we've seen earlier, living like Native American, becoming Native American, and selling your material as a faux Native American. Now, as my father once said, they have taken our land, our children, our culture. Now they want to take our art. When will it stop? Thank you.